Welcome back. You're watching the latest news from Kazakhstan. I'm Marina Kim, and here are the top stories. 4 residents of Almaty region were diagnosed with anthrax. Satellite dishes negatively impact the environment. Kazakh authorities will impose limits in access to satellite TV. The Azad political party has sued the Kazakh Justice Ministry for illegally refusing to register it. 626 doctors were diagnosed with hepatitis in Kazakhstan. It was reported by the senior sanitary doctor of Kazakhstan during a press conference in Astana yesterday. The sanitary authorities have inspected about 1,500 hospitals across the country. There were no exclusions. Both the public and private clinics workers were tested, and as a result, the hepatitis B was found in 329, while 280 had hepatitis C. Total 17 medical workers were infected by both kinds of viruses. During the observation, it was established that the surgeons are at most risk to be infected, as they made up to 30% of all infected. In December last year, the case with infecting the little leukemia patients with hepatitis C raised public resonance. The source of infection is not still established. I want to emphasize that all of those medical workers were suspended from the work immediately. They are going through additional tests. In case of finding infected amongst them, they will be paid by the state for their treatment, but those who carried it will have to take off the job, unfortunately. Carriers of another dangerous virus were found in Almaty region. 4 residents of the Kazakhstan village hospitalized recently are infected with anthrax. It was confirmed by the sanitary authorities, who are conducting the anti-epidemic measures at the moment. All 4 infected are the butchers selling the beef. The residents who bought the infected meat weren't established yet, while the medical workers raise an alert about the outbreak. The anthrax killed 2 residents of Pavlodar region just a month ago. We are searching for sold-out product, as they may end up quite far because of the wayside cafes, shish kebab places and any markets nearby Almaty. Medical authorities responsible for the anthrax outbreak in Pavlodar region were dismissed, and the prosecutor's office has instigated a criminal case according to the Criminal Code article on violation of veterinary regulations with extreme consequences. Meanwhile, Russia has banned imports of Kazakh meat products again, this time due to the foot and mouth disease outbreak registered in the Akhmalar region. The temporary ban was previously introduced in June this year, but then was cancelled. This time the ban applies to Akhmalar region only. We are ready to fully assist our Kazakh colleagues in elimination of the foot and mouth disease, which is a very serious illness. Yet we understand the real threat of further spread of the infectious virus from the neighboring states, but we hope to fight it together, and the supplies will be renewed. The National Security Committee of Kazakhstan has instigated a criminal case against Birjan Murataliyev, Prime Minister Karim Masimov's advisor. Murataliyev is in escape now, said businessman Peter Potapov in an interview to the Respublika Business Review newspaper. According to it, the Prime Minister's advisor is suspected in abusing his authority and lobbying the interests of China in the so-called soy scandal and in attempts to illegally terminate the competitors in the market.
A criminal case was instigated on the Kazakh Prime Minister's advisor Birjan Murataliyev. It was published on the Respublika Business Review newspaper 10 days ago, referring to businessman Peter Potapov. Today the entrepreneur has confirmed this information and furthermore has told reporters that Murataliyev was involved in the so-called soy scandal. In 2009, China has requested Kazakhstan to lease million hectares of land for cultivating soy and rapeseed. However, the idea was turned down after serious public resonance it caused. This man is a famous speculator. He was convicted in 2003 with confiscation of property for economy-related crime in Kazakhstan. He was sentenced then for 5 years and deprived from the right to work as civil servant. Potapov claims he knows quite much about Murataliyev. In October last year, the finance police has blocked the Vitas operation organized allegedly by Murataliyev, who simply was clearing the market from his competitors. Eventually, though, the criminal case was instigated on him for abusing the authority by signing the memorandum on realization of a joint Kazakh-Chinese soy production venture. We don't have such information, and I have no idea where you get it from. I would have known if it was true. So he is not wanted or escaping at all. We don't deal with it anyways, I don't have any information. The finance policy representative Murat Jumanbay has promised to provide information about the case, but failed to do so. Meanwhile, a leader of the Azad political party, Bulat Abilov, thinks Masimov must bear personal responsibility for the crime of his advisor. Even if he has to resign, if he selected his staff, he must be responsible for their actions, and if the National Security Committee is instigating a case, it must be somehow related with Masimov as well. The silence that the National Security Committee keeps about the case is related with Masimov. Since Murat Aliyev is often noticed in the high official circle, it's logical to assume that his supporters may influence the case. Therefore, the parties keep the silent position, while Murat Aliyev might have already left the country, according to unverified data.
Another suspect in Astana had not fled the country yet. His case simply cannot reach the court. Victim's mother, Natalia Zhumabekova, asked the prosecutor's office of Kazakhstan thoroughly investigate the death of his son, who has been killed in a car accident on May 9th this year. The driver had no license as was deprived from it for drunk driving just prior to the accident. However, it doesn't seem sufficient argument for police to bring the case to the court. Next story has details.
The Astana prosecutor's office has just reviewed another car accident which resulted in death of a pedestrian. Prosecutor evaluated the action of a Subaru Impreza driver Musa Olikhanov, who stripped Konstantin Zhumabekov to death in one of the Astana streets on May 9th as an insignificant gravity offense. Eventually, the expertise established that driver could have avoided the accident. The mother of the dead, Natalia, can't understand why the driver didn't attempt to avoid it. Even with high speed, it was possible to brake and turn to the left, but he explains in his statement that he preferred not to crash his car. Was the bunch of metal more important for him than the person's life? Natalia Zhumabekova had to put a lot of efforts to get the criminal case instigated on the driver, including appeals to General Prosecutor's Office, Internal Affairs Ministry, and even the President of the country. Upon endless coordination, the Astana Internal Affairs Department had turned the case to the Sarayarık District Prosecutor's Office. The given case is being reviewed, and we have 10 days to make a resolution on whether or not to turn it to the court or send for additional investigation. The similar case on Yevgeny Zhovtis was not paid such loyalty a couple years ago, when he was sentenced to 4 years of imprisonment for running over the pedestrian. But unlike the driver in the current case, Yevgeny didn't disappear from the accident site, but instead tried to help the victim by calling the ambulance and police. Eventually, Zhovtis was forgiven by the victim's mother, which wasn't considered by prosecution and court at all. Apparently, the law doesn't treat all citizens equally. According to Natalia Zhumabekova, the driver who killed her son didn't leave the accident site only because the windscreen of his car was smashed to atoms and voluntarily went for an alcohol in blood test. And then Olikhanov had boldly offered Natalia $1,000 as a compensation for her loss. However, the investigation had missed the fact that driver had twice been deprived from his license for drunk driving. He was drunk on that tragic day as well, Zhumabekova. Meanwhile, the road police statistics indicate the growing trend in drunk driving, as only for the last 6 months, more than 3,000 violators were registered in Astana alone. This year, the car accidents involving the pedestrians make up 58% of total amount of car accidents. Natalia Zhumabekova demands the law enforcement bodies to immediately arrest the driver who killed her son. She hopes that the case will be soon turned to the court and the guilty will be punished by all the strictness of the law. In the meantime, she will only have to explain 6-year-old Daniil that his father won't return.
In the meantime, the human rights defender mentioned in the previous story has been punished again, this time for his passion to soccer. Yevgeny Zhovtis was sentenced for the car accident which led to human death. His wife Svetlana told reporters that another provocation was made against Zhovtis in the prison. The soccer enthusiast has requested a TV set for the time of the World Championship. At one of the nights, the electricity was cut off suddenly and Zhovtis decided to go outside to check and was immediately arrested for abusing regulations. Now he will be deprived from the right to apply for release on parole until January 2012.
I had an impression that a special operation was done against me immediately. I don't really suffer the persecution mania or excessive skepticism, but there are simply too many coincidences and strange chain of hazards. It felt really bad, and I just can't call it nothing but a law act.